All right, so the stream is started and we're ready to go. So welcome everyone. Today we're going to be creating a figure for layer parenting inside of Animate. And this is going to be a little similar to some of the stuff we did around Halloween when we used Fresco to kind of draw out, a figure, a character, which we then used IK to animate inside of Animate. So when it comes to layer parenting, it's a different way of rigging than inverse kinematics is. But I do need an extra, piece of content for another project. So I figured this would be a great opportunity to set that up. So before we get too much into it, I want to mention, where did I put that? Let's just zip this down. Beep. So if you go into my my live streams here, my videos, here we are right here. So hi everyone. But underneath there, we've got the recordings, right? The replays for these different videos. And something I want to mention is that the replay from last week somehow disappeared. It's gone. The team at Behance, they're looking into it. They're trying to get it back. So hopefully they do get it back because I thought it was a pretty good stream. And hopefully they will. So that should show up there. So if anybody's missing that, you're not crazy. It's actually just disappeared. There's a technical problem with that. And, having been like really involved in streaming and transcoding systems and things like that in the past, I understand the complexities around this stuff. It can be awful. So I understand if they can't get it back. However, in the case that this ever happens again, I've started simultaneously recording when I stream. So I'm recording locally, and in case this ever happens again or my stream blows up or something, you'll be able to find the replay at YouTube. So let's go ahead with that out of the way and have a look at Animate here. So I want to create a new document. I'm going to just hit create new. That's going to bring up the new document dialog for us. And, oh, hey, William, how are you today? Thanks for joining. So that's something else. I'm always looking. I try to keep an eye on, the chat and everything inside of these live streams. It's one of the benefits to having a live stream is that people can join and say hello. Then I can say hi back to you. But, if you have any questions or anything too, it's perfect for that as well. All right. So let's go into my advanced settings here. And from this area, I can choose a specific platform, right? For layer parenting, you're probably going to use character animation. And all of these presets are going to target ActionScript 3.0 because it is the most expressive document type inside of Animate. And if you're doing character animation, layer parenting, or IK, or anything like that, it's going to make a lot of sense to use the full capabilities of the program. So what I'm going to do is choose, I don't know, I'll just choose HD and modify it. So I don't actually want it to export at 1280 by 720. I'm using this actually just to create the assets that I can then share as a library and pull them into another project down the road to properly rig them for layer parenting. So what I'm going to do is do like a 700 by 700. I think that's going to work out just fine. We can do 30 frames per second, but I'm going to choose 24. Make it a little easier for myself to fill in those frames. And not that it matters that much. We're not going to have initially any animation in here. We're just going to create our assets. And again, ActionScript 3.0, that's going to be just fine because we're just creating assets. If you're creating assets in Animate, it really doesn't matter what platform you choose. However, you know, ActionScript 3.0 is going to allow us the greatest amount of tools, so I'm going to choose that. Let's go ahead and hit OK, or create, rather, not OK. And it's going to create this document for us. So again, by default, you know, it shows up really white. It's very bright, which I don't like very much, but you can always change that if you want to. I'm going to keep it mostly white. Maybe I'll just take it down a little bit. Because I'm going to be drawing stuff. So I want it to be fairly kind of neutral. I don't want to be doing anything crazy in here. I want to see exactly what I'm drawing as I go through this. So let's have a look. I'm going to save this guy here. And I'm going to probably start out. Now, there's tons of different tools I could use, right? Adobe Animate is very expressive when it comes to the different tools that we have to choose from. So I have different brushes. I've got different shape tools. And I think what I'll do is start off with the oval tool. Now, a lot of what I do, if I try to like draw stuff like this out, I usually start out when working in vector, like very, very sort of rough and primitive, where you got like circles and squares and things like that. And then you use the additional tools inside of Animate to sort of, you know, provide more dimension to them, to make them more complex, to, you know, change their curve values and things of that nature. So you'll see what I mean as I go through this here. And I'm going to create all of this stuff on a single layer. So let's go ahead and do that. I've got my oval tool. The first thing I need to do, of course, is create some sort of a head. Just like that. And I like to model things like this after those little, like, those little posable wooden things you use in like life drawing classes and things like that, right? I'm sure they have a particular name, but they're very simple, kind of gender neutral, human form things. I'm going to go ahead and make sure to create this as an object as well. You can see right now it's a shape. So when you're dealing with shapes inside of Animate, it's really easy to like goof things up. So you can see right here, I actually dragged off the fill from my stroke. So it's really easy to do stuff like that when you're using simple shapes. And I'm happen to be teaching Animate right now inside of my couple of my classes, and it's all intro to Animate stuff. And it's a problem that I see happen like over and over again with people who are just learning Animate. Is, you know, things work so differently. You could be using Illustrator, and, you know, in Illustrator, the stroke and the fill, they are just like unified on the path. In Animate, it works a little different. These things can be separated. But if I choose to create a drawing object out of that, then it doesn't matter. Then they're going to stay together. All right. So now, oops. Yeah, sure. Let's save this. Let's call it wooden doll, because I have nothing else to call it. Wooden doll, I think, is going to be great. And the next thing we need to do is to create the torso. So I'm going to choose my rectangle tool instead. And that looks like a pretty good size there. Now, each time I do this, and I forgot this. Here, let's undo that, because I just went on and on about drawing object mode, or object drawing mode, rather. So if I, excuse me, if I choose the rectangle tool, and I look over in my rectangle tool properties, I can toggle object drawing mode on or off. So I'm going to turn that on, because I want to create these as drawing objects from the get-go. So here I can go ahead and do that. So now if I draw this out, and I'm looking for shape and proportion right now, more than I'm looking at position and placement. So that's kind of important to mention too. So now this is an actual drawing object. You can see that right here. And if I go ahead and use my alignment panel, I can align this to the stage like that. Let's do this to both of them. There we go. So they're both center aligned to the stage. I don't know why Behance is always telling me that I have a poor network connection, because I don't, and there's never any problems that you all see. It just likes to tell me that. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. So let's go ahead and create some additional body parts. So here we're going to have arms. And what I like to do when I create arms for a character like this is to create the different arm segments, starting with this one. And then we just hold Option or Alt to create the second one. That's how I know that what I'm creating is the same width and height, right? So we're making these exactly the same. And the same thing with the legs. But before I make legs, I need a pelvis. Let's create that pelvis right there. That looks about right. And then we'll create the legs. And actually, I might have to make this document a little taller. I'm going to shift him up like this. And let's see. So I want the legs to be a bit longer than the arms and a bit wider than the arms as well. And looking pretty good. And you can see this is like, I mean, when it starts out here, this is like super simple, right? We've got these shapes going on. So let's drag that down there. And we'll do the same thing over here. Just copy, 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 copy. All right. So in terms of proportion, this is starting to look pretty good. I'm going to use my free transform tool with both of those lower legs selected to just make them a little shorter. And I need feet as well. But before I create feet, I do need to make some adjustments to my document because I want it to be taller. So I'm going to take my document height to something around 800 so that I've got room for feet. Yeah. So this is looking pretty good. Let's create 2 little feet here. And right now too, I mean, all the body parts are basically completely disjointed from one another. We are going to fix all this as we go through it. And of course, I need some little hands as well. And for hands, I like to use the oval tool. And there we go. We've got all the different parts that we're going to need, right? We've got the torso, we got the pelvis, we have all the limbs and the extremities, like the hands and the feet. We also have the head. I do want to put a neck in there too, but that'll be part of the detail section that we go through. So the first thing I'll probably do is choose my sub-selection tool. And again, right now we're just focused on, you know, getting the different pieces together, right? They're super simple right now. They're just boxes. However, I can go ahead in here and make, with my sub-selection tool, a selection for any of these different vector points, right? And I can adjust accordingly. So here we're gonna put him in a little bit there. Oops. Make sure that you've deselected things first before you do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pretty good. And you know what? I don't know. I should make it shoulders a little more pronounced, maybe. I gotta deselect again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So again, I'm creating this specifically to underscore how to create, you know, a layer parenting group for animation. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Come on, buddy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can see as we're going through and doing this that, you know, we are getting to make the different modifications we need for each of these. For this one here, I'm actually going to select 2 points. 2, 3, 4. One, 2, 3, 4. And then just 2, 3. 1, 2. Oops, did it again. Look at that. 1, 2, 3. Just deselect. Always deselect. 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's doing okay. Maybe I'll undo that a little bit. Oh, shoot. This is not exactly what I'm looking to do here. Let's start over on both of these. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3. Deselect, deselect. And select these 2 points. 1, 2, 3. So interesting. I'm not sure where that came from, but I guess we'll deal with it. As we go through here. Actually, I can just remove this. Let's go ahead and select this point, deselect everything, select this point, and delete it. And it's not looking, I don't know. Things are going to get variable as we go, right? So it's fine if things aren't exactly matching up like you would expect them to as you go through this sort of thing. All right, let's go ahead and switch gears a little bit. I want to kind of get some curvature going on here. So I'm going to go back to my selection tool. And with nothing actually selected on the selection tool, if you hover over any of these bits and pieces, you're going to be able to modify it a little bit. So if I bring the torso in like this, here and there, I can create something like that, right? So this allows me to push and pull on these different paths in order to modify the shapes. And it adds some variability to the shapes, but it also allows like, it allows a certain amount of flexibility to your different points. You don't have to necessarily mess with anchor points all the time. You can adjust things as you see fit. So this is kind of cool. I'm trying to create something that is a bit angular. I mean, I don't want it to look completely human. Again, like I said at the beginning, I'm trying to get this thing to be sort of like one of those little wooden puppets, right? That you see when you are dealing with like life drawing and things of that nature. Or sketching. It's a line stage. Nope, not like that. Hello, good evening. I see there's a good couple people here joining us. Welcome to the stream. So I'm curious how many people use Animate in their kind of daily work who are attending the live stream right now. That'd be an interesting thing to find out. As I continue to sculpt these primitive shapes into something that's a little more human looking. That's too much. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, I am used to a lot of different applications inside the Adobe suite and otherwise, but I find that I really do enjoy working with Animate when it comes especially to even drawing stuff. So like, a lot of people use Illustrator to create their vectors. I find the tools in Animate, and it could be just because I'm used to them, right? I find them very easy to use. I find them easier to do a lot of the things that I want to do. And I'm curious if other people feel that way as well. Oops. So I'm trying to avoid kind of modifying any of these particulars here. And of course, as we adjust these different paths, our separate pieces are absolutely going to start to differ in their shapes. They're going to become more and more unique as we go through this. But I always like sculpting like this inside of Animate. I find sculpting like this, just with the selection tool and the sub-selection tool, to be a process that's, really pretty unique. I know Illustrator has some tools that go into some of this as well, but I don't find them nearly as simple and as flexible to use. And I don't mean to, I'm not trying to bash Adobe Illustrator by any means. I use it for lots of different things. But when it comes to this sort of thing, especially if I'm going to be animating this using layer parenting, which I will be, if not today, next week, and probably next week, because we're already 24 minutes in here. Actually, before I do that one, I definitely want to make some adjustments with my sub-selection tool. Just make that wrist a bit thinner. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nice. Now we can switch back to the selection tool. And I can continue this. So something like this, it's so simple. But it's a really good way to prepare something that is going to be understandable when we get into layer parenting. Because again, it looks like, and that's what I'm going for, I want it to look like one of those little wooden dolls that we use to pose when we're sculpting or painting or doing life drawing, right? It's just got the basics of anatomy here. How did these get so thick? Gosh, let's fix that. Did I do something here to like totally goof this up? We could also use, as you see here, the free transform tool. I'm gonna free transform these guys into a bit more what I'm looking for here in terms of the shape. And notice that we can have full control also over, I don't want that there, over the individual points here and their corresponding handles. Let's bring this guy out a little bit. Like that. And if you hold down the shift key as you rotate, it'll actually snap to different points, which is a good thing to know. And I'm just repositioning these so they're a little easier to see as a full concept here. That's better. All right. So a couple things I need to do. These arms, the upper arms are still a little bit too straight. Let's make him a bit more. Oops. Stop it. Don't want to do that. I need a selection tool. Let's make these a little buffer here. All right. And these legs are too far apart too. So we can fix that. And of course, this isn't its final assembly in any means. We're just drawing stuff. This is meant for a greater purpose than what we're seeing right here. Yeah. So actually, the reason I'm creating this is because I need to create one of these anyway. for a book that I'm writing on Adobe Animate. The chapter I'm writing right now is all about layer parenting. And the chapter after that is all about inverse kinematics. And we cover rigging in both ways, using both IK and layer parenting. But, you know, I definitely need to have some assets to work with. So, you know, what works out really well for creating assets is if you happen to be doing a Behance live stream. It actually works out really well. 2 birds, 1 stone, that sort of thing. Oops. I did it again. I didn't deselect first. I don't know why Animate likes to remember things like that. Sometimes I really want to ask Animate like what it's thinking in some circumstances, because that's just an odd choice. All right, this is coming out pretty good. So there's additional stuff we could do too, right? So we don't want it to look too simple, which right now, I would say it's a bit too simple. Let's bring that head up a bit. We need to add a neck. And for that, again, I'm going to use my rectangle tool. But the neck's going to be weird, right? Because it's kind of like behind other stuff we have going on. Like this. So let's go ahead and put that there. And we're going to send this to the back. So it's behind there. And let's go ahead and tweak this a little bit so it looks more like a little neck. That's pretty good. And eventually this will be part of the head when we actually start creating symbols out of these. So again, the idea behind this is what we want to do is we want to create this in order to illustrate layer parenting and rigging in that way for a figure, for character animation. So the first step for that is to prepare the assets, get them all ready to go. And that's what we're doing here. So I don't want it to be completely white like this. In addition, now, I mean, right now it looks very much like the sort of thing I'm going for, right? And I've mentioned a couple times now, what I'm going for is actually, what's going on, bro? Doesn't seem like he really wants to cooperate here with adding. So I'm trying to add some points here, but what is up with that? Let's try it again. So this tool should allow me to add points to my path, but it's, for whatever reason, not working. Okay. I guess we'll forgo that for now. Anyhow. So what I'm going to do is start thinking about how I actually want to shade this thing. I don't want it to be black and white. So let's actually start with the torso. And what we can do is go to our color panel. I'm just going to tear that off right there because I want to, instead of create a solid color, I want a linear gradient. And I don't want it black and white, so we're going to adjust that. First of all, white. I want it to be more tan. I want this to look like one of those little wooden dolls, right? So let's go ahead and make that happen. I'm going to choose a nice tan color for that. That looks kind of like wood. And we don't want it too red. We don't want it too orange. This is looking a bit too red. we're just changing the hue. And that's a bit too yellow. Let's see here. All right, that's okay. Let's do it like that. And black, I do not want it to be black. I want it to be something different. I'm going to sample this color right here. Let's go ahead and copy that. Hex code. And inside of my black, initially what I'm going to do is just paste that in. Same exact hex code. So now it's basically a solid color because everything involved in my linear gradient is the same exact color. But now I can go in here and just tweak that if I want to. Or I don't even need to go in there. Why did I do that? I can do it from right here. And just give it a bit of shading. That's pretty good. Maybe, yeah, a little darker like that. Then I'm going to add that to my swatches just in case anything happens. So now if I go and look at my swatches, I've got it right there, right? Let's go ahead and pop this guy back over here. And in my swatches, I can also create this as a tagged swatch. So if I choose the swatch right there and I convert it to a tagged swatch, this is going to let me call it something. I'm going to call this wooden doll. Whatever, that works. I know it's the same thing I named my FLA file, but that's cool. I know exactly what it is. This isn't complicated. Let's hit OK. So now it shows up as a tagged swatch right here. And what that means is that I can then apply this tag swatch to my entire set of objects. Let's go ahead and fit in window. And for my fill, I'm going to just choose that tag swatch. And the great thing about this is that I'm now able to modify that tag swatch if I want to, and it'll cascade across anything that's using that swatch. One thing I definitely need to do is adjust the gradients here and there, which is easy enough to do with my gradient transform tool. Yeah. That's pretty good. So now the light source is pretty much coming from that one side of my screen. Just like that. All right, another thing I can do is adjust my stroke properties, right? Because right now, I'm just using like a solid, like 1 pixel black line for stroke. I could get rid of stroke altogether, and that might look okay too. So let's give it a go. I'm gonna go ahead and select everything again. And let's see what happens if I just disable the stroke altogether. Pretty good. It's okay. And notice if I select any of these drawing objects here, inside of my object panel, I can choose from shape options to smooth or straighten. Let's see what happens if I smoothen these. You can see it deforms quite a bit every time I click it. Let's undo this a little bit. I don't want it to go too crazy here. That looks okay though. So as I go through here, I am gonna go ahead and make some finer adjustments to some of these other bits and pieces. Let's go 200%. And let's think about things like this. So, you know, that's really very sharp right now. A lot of these pieces of my doll are quite sharp. So they're really hard to see too. Oops. There we go. So we're going pretty deep in here. See, that's kind of weird. That's what happens sometimes, though. So what we're going to do is clean up a lot of this stuff so it's not as sharp. So you see that? How it's much, much smoother. Look at that. There's all sorts of extra stuff in here that we just don't really need. And unfortunately, this can be a time-consuming process, right? So we're going in here and making all these different adjustments to keep everything nice and smooth. And unfortunately, it can sometimes take a while to do this. But removing certain things does help. Repositioning things helps. And again, none of this has to be really perfect. It's just trying to give an example of kind of how things could go here, right? And look at that. I've got some additional objects here now that I could use. Let's round out those shoulders a bit. And what I really want to do is, probably not like that. I want to give him like a little V-neck, right? So yeah, I mean, just making these little adjustments here and there as we go to get everything looking exactly like we want it. Again, it can be a long process to do this. You got a lot of body parts to think about as you go through and do it. I think I'm going to leave the head like it is. I like how the head turned out. Some of this other stuff, it makes sense to just shift these over a little bit and create some additional bits and pieces here to create a bit more elevation. In certain spaces. And yeah, we're basically just going from body part to body part and making these different changes. No, actually, what did we do over there? We had a bit more of a... Let's shift this down a bit. Nope, stop. There we go. So cleaning stuff up, very important when you create something in this way. Oops. Careful not to delete your entire path. Thank goodness for Command Z, right? So something nice is, I think I mentioned before, I'm teaching Animate in my classes right now at the university. And one of the nice things about that is that it's always fun to see students using Animate for the first time, right? But also, today is the final Wednesday class of the semester. So my semester is coming to an end very quickly here. Last day of classes for my students is Monday. I always find it's fun to end a class on Animate. So you can see how much nicer this is coming out now. I've got these portions much, much nicer. I've got these shoulders rounded off, right? It's looking more like a little wooden doll. Let's go in 1000. And let's see. One way to often think about these things is to get a good perspective, right? Is to actually look at a skeleton, right, instead of a doll. So I was going to look and see exactly what one of these little dolls looked like. Initially, I was like, well, I'll just bring it into, you know, I'll get a photo of one of those dolls from wherever you get them, right? You can get them from art supply stores. You can buy them from Amazon.com. Wherever. Do we call it Amazon.com anymore or just Amazon now? But I kind of thought about it and it was like, well, I don't know. Doesn't really need to be based on one of those. The concept is probably enough as we go through here to realize what I'm trying to realize with this particular doll. I don't know why he doesn't want to work, but he doesn't. It's okay. We got other toys to play with, like this. So yeah, I think today I'll probably just continue to round this all off to the point where it's going to be a usable artifact. And next week, oh, stupid. You see that? What a dum-dum. Next week, as I was saying, we can go through and actually, what is going on with my tools here? Hey, bud. There we go. next week we can go through and further. Oh, I gotta deselect, don't I? Further establish different properties. So we're gonna have to bind up all these different body parts inside of a container element, right? So we're gonna have to bind them up as movie clip symbols or graphic symbols or something like that. And that's gonna allow us to, do some additional stuff to them if we want to. Oh my gosh, pelvis, please. You can tell I just give up on the pelvis right there and just start manipulating other bits and pieces here. So yeah, we're gonna pull that down. Pull that down like that. And same thing with the other leg. So what, oh gosh, I did it again. It drives me nuts about this tool. So be careful when you're doing this so you don't change things too much, right? In terms of the stuff you want to retain. Let's remove this point right here. And, try to remember, oh gosh, I did it again. Try to recall as you're going through and doing stuff like this, exactly what these different pieces should look like. And yeah, I'll be back in a sec. So on Wednesday, the coffee kitty comes and brings me coffee, which is always appreciated. Thank you, Coffee Kitty. So it looks like that got all sorts of jacked up right there. Let's fix that. Just delete it. And we can bring back a little more of that bulge. Pretty good. And I like to simplify things like this because if you've got too many little points, it makes it more difficult to sculpt things, right? So like the way it is right now, like it almost looks like little knees, right? And that's what we want. Let's look down here. We're almost finished with these bits and pieces. I don't know, maybe we will today. I've got to be mindful because I do have class, so I need to prep for that a little bit. But get rid of these extra spots. Oh, hey, buddy. Jeez. Let's just undo that altogether. So holding an Alt or Option is going to allow you to just drag like one or the other handle. It's going to let you break them apart, which is awesome. So you don't like totally goof up other stuff that you're trying to do, right? Shoot. Just like that. Kill it. Love my undo shortcut because you got to undo a lot when you're building things like this. So I'm thinking more of an ankle here, right? Let's isolate that. Excellent. It's oftentimes a lot easier to remove the things that you don't want, that you no longer need, before you add something that you do want. Very much like life. Oh, be quiet. I'm going to keep those toes all weird. I think that's going to work. This guy here, let's shift him around a little bit. Nice. All right, let's see everything fit in window. That's exactly what I envisioned when I started this. That is great. Always important to get what you want from something like this. So now what we're going to do to wrap things up is I'm going to start creating these as different groups. So I'm going to select the head and the neck. Let's go ahead now. And Behance, stop telling me I have a poor network connection, because I don't. It's fine. There we go. Let's see if Behance listens. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click this symbol right here, convert to symbol, button rather. I don't know what I should create these as. They could be movie clip symbols. They could be... Yeah, let's create them all as movie clip symbols. It's going to be my head, so I'm going to call it head. This one right here is going to be a torso. And when you're doing layer parenting, you don't necessarily need to do this. However, it does help just keep things organized. And it keeps things organized because when you go through, and if I were to, you can see everything's on one layer right now. So if after I name all of these as movie clip symbols, if I go through and distribute everything to layers, what's going to happen is it will create layers and it will use those names from the movie clip symbols to create the layer names, which is really cool. This coffee's hot. Coffee Kitty got me a hot coffee. All right, this is an upper right arm. Maybe I'll start with R. Upper arm. And then we got R lower arm. We got R hand. This is always super fun just creating all these, right? I don't know how interesting this is. So left upper arm. Left lower arm. Then we got our left hand. All right, so we got the entire body from the pelvis up created. Let's now go ahead and do the legs to finish off. So this is the right upper leg. The right lower leg. The right foot. Left upper leg. Left lower leg. And can anybody guess? Left foot. Yay. Right on. So now each one of these individual objects is an actual movie clip symbol, which is going to make things a bit easier to just keep things organized as we go through this, right? So there we go. We got our little wooden doll. And, You know, there's one more thing I want to do. That's to give the face a little definition. Hello. Thank you for joining. I see. Yeah, we're doing really good here. So I'm gonna go in here. Let's select the head. So one way you can do stuff like this is to create additional objects, right? Like eyes. I like to create nice big eyes. And what we're going to do is remove the stroke from each of these. And right now, because they're like this, they look like they're kind of like bugging out, right? But we can use the gradient transform tool to shift that like this. Just make them the opposite in terms of shading. And now they look like they're not bugging out anymore, but they're actually inset, right? And you know, you could do the same thing to his torso here to give him the appearance of ribs and so forth. Let's go ahead and do that too, because that's a pretty cool effect. Excuse me. Excuse me, sir. You can't cough here, sir. So it's funny, there's this pretty stupid story that I have. This was probably back. Gosh, when was it? Oh, when was this? I shouldn't even tell this story because it's stupid, like I said. This was probably back in, I don't know, the early 2000s. And I used to go out to, like, you know, some clubs in the area in Denver. And I'd go with my girlfriend at the time. And there was one time, so you used to be able to, let's get to this. Let's get to the point of the story quick, okay? So the point of the story is, at clubs, you used to be able to smoke in clubs, right? And at least in Denver now, which is where I live in that area, in Denver you can't smoke in clubs anymore, right? It's you just can't do it, which is fine because I'm not a smoker. I never was a smoker. Which leads me to the story. So we were in the club downtown Denver, and I was getting smoke inside my eyes, my contact lenses, and so forth. Very, very uncomfortable. So I sat down and, you know, I wanted to, you know, just rest my eyes for a little bit. I wasn't sleeping. However, what ended up happening was one of the bar girls came over and she was like, sir. She's like, you can't sleep here, sir. You can't sleep here. And I'm just like, I'm not sleeping. You know, I'm not sleeping. I'm just resting my eyes, if you don't mind. Anyway, that's my story. I remember it fondly. It's a stupid story, like I said, but whatever. That gives him a little rib cage there, right? All right. And we could go ahead and keep doing stuff like this to our little guy. Actually, let's go in. It's just a little too pronounced right there. Let's go ahead and just pull that down. Oh, we can't. Well, in that case, let's go ahead and undo. And just modify the gradient itself. First, I'm going to adjust the gradient transform a little bit more. So it's a little more like that. And then this needs to be changed. I'm going to go into my color. And I don't want to edit this. I'm going to unlink it because I don't want to mess with what I have going on here. Pull my alpha transparency down on the rest of this. Just shift it over a little. You can see what that's done right here. It's really, really subdued it quite a bit, which is exactly what I want. Let's get that a little tighter. Pretty good. There we go. All right, fit in window. And there we go. Now he's got a little definition to his ribs, and it doesn't look as much like a, I don't know, however it looked before. I might put a few more details in here like that. I'm not quite sure. However, I think it's time for the stream to end. Just like I said, we're kind of near the end here, and we need to do what we need to do. So everybody who joined in live, thank you so much for doing so. For those watching the replay, thank you as well. And I'll see you all later. Everybody have a great rest of your day and a great remainder of your week.